This hide's already been soaking in water for almost 2 days, and it's been very warm, so it's starting to get a little bit ripe already. It's better to flush immediately if you can, or at least refrigerate the skin. You could also freeze it, thaw it later, and flush it. I'm going to go ahead, there's some blood in the skin and stuff like that, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse this in a clean change of water in another tub over here. For fleshing, you don't want your tool to be too sharp or too dull, although there's a pretty broad spectrum of sharpness that you can work with. Better too dull than too sharp though, because if it's too sharp, you're likely to cut the skin. And remember, everywhere you cut and gouge the skin is permanent. So I'll be testing these two out. I think I'm going to start with this one. I have the neck at the top of the beam. That's how I like to start. You can see that I've started what I call a front here. It's like a line, and I'm going to advance that line with each new pass because it's easier. This tissue this membrane wants to stick together, so it's easier to go across a few inches at a time than it is to try to take, let's say, one side of it and just keep trying to go down, because this starts to tear and catch. So just work, 2 to 3 inches at a time across the hide like that. Now you'll see there's a lot of flesh on here. That is fine. Don't ever tell someone that's going to be skinning a hide for you that you want a clean hide and let them think that you don't want fat and flesh. Any amount of fat and flesh is totally fine. What you don't want is them thinking they're going to get you a clean hide, and they start trying to cut all this meat off, and then they cut the hide, and once they cut the hide, that's all she wrote. So as you can see, this isn't very hard work, but there's some technique. And once you get real familiar with these tools, you can work pretty fast. Now I'm going to move the hide up, and I'm going to do another strip going down the side here. In fleshing, the hair forms a cushion on the beam, so the beam doesn't have to be in very good shape. As long as there's not any huge dents and bumps in it, you're okay. Other processes will have to have the beam pretty smooth. This may be gross, but it's very satisfying because you're getting rid of all this gross stuff. Look at that beautiful white skin. While you're flushing, you're going to see a lot of little stuff that's still hanging on here. And even the parts that look really clean, like here, they aren't. We're leaving on actually a whole layer of stuff that we want to take off. But it's a waste of time to try to get it off now because it's just too much work. Once the skin is dried once, that stuff is going to come off real easy. And you'll see later there's a whole layer here. So just take off whatever comes off easy. Make it, pretty flat. Get rid of all the chunks of meat and fat. That's all we're doing. This is the worst time of year to work for yellow jackets and flies. In the early fall, the yellow jackets get real aggressive and the flies are doing their thing before winter hits and they all die, I guess. If your skin is long and it's dragging on the ground, you can just tie the skin, the bottom part of the skin that's hanging off the beam, just tie that in a knot to make it shorter. When the bottom of the skin's done, I just turn it around and finish the neck. Again, I'm leaving all kinds of stuff here behind, but we're going to get that later. And all this dirt's gonna come off with it. You can see this long tag end. I'm not gonna use any of this to make buckskin, so I could trim this all the way here, but I may use this for glue. So we're gonna go ahead and flesh it. But if I wasn't using it for glue or anything else, I wouldn't bother to flesh it and I just cut it off now. That's called rounding off, where you just cut off the stuff that you're not gonna use. So that's it. If the hide were fresh and I was gonna dry it, I would just go ahead and stake it out and dry it now. If it's gonna get scraped, which this one is, I put it back in fresh water until it's ready to scrape. I prepared 2 tubs of water here. One is just to rinse the skin to get rid of more blood, hair, dirt, loose tissue, loose hair. See, there's a lot of hair falling out already. That's a good indicator that it's probably just about ready to scrape. Every step of the way, you just always rinse the hide to get it cleaner. And then this one, it will stay in here until it's ready to scrape. I should change that once a day. But I'm also going to make sure that it's submerged completely with a rock or something like that. Or at the very least, that the hair side is floating up, so there's only hair exposed and no skin. But I'm going to weight that down with a rock. Here's the tool that we use today. This is one that I forged out of a piece of old car leaf spring, and it put a couple antler handles on. And it is pretty sharp. I can easily scrape material off of my thumbnail with it. Hopefully you can see that. It'll easily shave little bits of material off of there. I would say this is too sharp probably for graining a hide, working on the hair side. This tool is much duller, but it would have worked. You could have made this work and it would be safer, especially for a beginner. I would say a good place to start is to sharpen the tool and then bring it back to where it'll cut your fingernail, but you have to kind of press into it to get it to cut a little bit. Whereas this one, it really doesn't take that much. Really any pressure, hardly at all. And if you're fleshing very difficult animals, especially hogs, raccoons, bears, stuff like that, then you need that little bit of sharpness going on. Sometimes a lot of sharpness, just depends. But we're just talking about deer hides here. So I'm going to say that no sharper than this and a little duller for most people. And don't forget to clean up your mess. Job's not done until the work site's cleaned up. Dump out those tubs of bloody water, clean up the fleshings, put everything away, rinse your tools, rinse the beam, rinse your apron.